But it's 4 kilometres from the point O on the beach, and then his destination is 4 kilometres from that point O. Okay, he can row at 4 kilometres per hour. That's that h2 minus 1, that means per hour. And he can walk at 5 kilometres per hour. How should he proceed in order to reach his destination in the least possible time? So time is what we want to minimise. So that means we want to find t dash, make it equal to 0. Alright? So they're the kind of keywords we're looking for. Exactly, so we're going to use the DST triangle. Distance, speed, time. Yeah, time is distance divided by speed. We've got a few distances here, and we also were given a few speeds. So the scenario is, the possible things are, right, he can row straight to the destination like that. But remember, he's rowing at 4 kilometres an hour. Or he could row to somewhere like here, row at 4 kilometres an hour, and then walk at 5 kilometres per hour. So whereabouts does he need to row to? At which point does he need to row so that he gets to his destination in the quickest time? Okay, so there's all these different possibilities. So we'll just put one of them in, and we're going to introduce a new variable, x, which will help us. So just say he rows to here, then we'll call this distance from here to here x. Therefore, what would this distance here be?
Y minus x. Or y to x.
4 minus x.
4 minus x, because this distance is 4, and that's x, so this will be 4 minus x. Does that make sense, everyone? Yeah? Okay, now we've got two distances, I guess, that he needs to travel. We'll call... He's got to do the rowing part first, which we'll call D1. And then he's got to do the walking part, which we'll call D2. Does that make sense? So what is D1? Got a right angle triangle here.
D squared equals 4 squared plus x squared.
Exactly. Yeah. So D1 equals the square root of x squared plus 4 squared.
Yeah.
But because we're trying to find time, and time is distance divided by speed. Yeah. So our first distance there, D1, is the square root of 4 squared plus x squared. Yeah, so that's our, maybe I'll just do it in the colours.
This is just stupid.
Okay, so. Oh, that went too far. 4 squared plus x squared. So that's our distance D1. And what about then, how long will it take him to travel that distance? Remember, time is distance divided by speed. So that's our distance. What's his speed?
Do you do the speed as in?
Yep, 4 kilometres per hour.
Yeah, but then
Because, Liam, you know how 4 squared plus x squared equals d squared? So d equals the square root of 4 squared plus x squared. Alright, then our next bit he's travelling is just there. And that distance is 4 minus x. And his speed is 5 kilometres per hour. Okay, so the total time that it will take him to get to his destination is that time plus that time. So this is his total time. Okay? So remember, time is distance divided by speed. Distance divided by speed. So this was the time it'll take for him to row. And this is the time it takes for him to walk along the beach. Okay? Then now what it's asking for, how should he proceed in order to reach his destination in the least possible time? So they're pretty much saying, whereabouts along this beach should he row to? Okay? So we're then trying to find x, yeah, because that'll give us how far along the beach he needs to go. So we want to find t dash, make it equal to 0, and solve for x. Does that make sense? So how do we differentiate this?
you have to do 2 questions.
There's just x here, there's one x here, and there's one x here. So remember how when you're differentiating things, you just differentiate, whether the plus in the middle, you differentiate each one separately. Alright, so to differentiate that, well that's the same as 16 plus x squared to the power of half. So going to bring the half down the front. And then that'll half will multiply by this 4. Keep the stuff in brackets the same. Subtract 1 from the power and multiply by the derivative of what's inside the brackets. Okay. And then the derivative of this, well, see how 4 minus x is the same as that? These two things are the same as that. So the derivative of that is 0 and the derivative of that is negative 1/5. So let's just make this a little bit nicer, because then when we make it equal to 0, it'll be easier to solve. So this 2 and this 2 end up cancelling. Alright, negative power becomes a positive power on the denominator. And that falls on the denominator, so that stays down there.
You just keep the denominator in a different check. It's in the top.
Yeah, it's like a constant. It's like being out the front. You bring the power down the front and multiply it.
Yeah,
So it's like we're doing half times, that quarter. Times a quarter is an 8.
How'd you
No, yeah, the one on 5.
What's the bottom part then? 2.4.
What
T
part?
dash.
Shouldn't it be 3/5 because it's
This one?
Hey. Hey.
The derivative of this? So that can be split up into 2 fractions. And the derivative of that's just negative 1/5.
A T dash.
And the derivative of that's 0.
2.4.
Yeah. Any other questions?
no, it's
Charlie?
2.2.
What don't you get?
How you went from the first T dash to the second D dash for the like
And then
yeah. What happened?
Can you see how the 2's cancel?
Well, he just cancelled.
Yeah? 4. Oh, there's an x there.
Yeah, that's what it was.
This
Yeah.
x needs to stay on the top. Sorry guys. That x is on the top. This 16 plus x squared, that negative power becomes a positive power on the denominator. Yeah, that's better. Does that make sense? Okay, now remember to find a max or min, you make
So you cancelled.
first derivative equal to 0 and solve. So we're going to make this equal to 0 and solve for x. So that's easy. We can just bring the 1/5 over this side. And then we've got a fraction on either side and we'll just cross multiply.
Yeah.
Easy. This is just basic arithmetic and algebra. So now we've
Basic.
got 4 root
Yeah.
16 plus x squared equals 5x. So that's why I emphasise the importance of the result in that first exam, because it forms the foundations of this course.
Just
Okay, so what can we do now? We want to get rid of that square root sign, which means we need to square everything. So we've got 16. Outside of 16 plus x squared equals 25x squared. Then brackets, 16 times 16. 256 plus 16x squared.
Where did the x go into the fly? And just flip
It just did, man.
Cross
It just
multiply.
Oh,
Cross multiply. And then let's collect the x squareds. 25 minus 16. So 9? Yes. So I'm just going to continue over here.
Because then you
So
square it,
we
you square it
have
to get rid of the square root.
9x squared equals 256. So x squared equals 256 divided by 9. Which is,
Yeah, this is
number.
never.
Are the questions going to be this hard in the exam?
Yeah. So x equals the square root of that.
Square root, isn't it?
Square root of 256. That will be root 256 over 3. And then that's plus or minus, but since x is positive.
Root 256 is 16 minutes.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, you did 16 times 16 down the bottom. So.
Oh, yeah, come on. Okay. So.
Frustration.
Oh, yeah. Why did I? Right. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
since x is positive, remember? X was a distance. X equals 16 over 3, which is equal to what? 5 3 is 50. And 1 remainder.
5.3.
So actually, you know what's happening? Is he is rowing past his destination
This is
and then walking
stupid,
backwards.
man.
So like, can I do this in?
Oh,
What do you do that?
dumb, man.
What?
I don't think anyone in the world
No.
thinks of
No.
that.
He was rowing,
That doesn't make sense. If you're going
rowing up there and
then
he's walking back this way.
How do you figure that?
It says road
I
direct
This
to
is
destination.
5 and 3rd, so there we go. So this X is
Yes.
going to
I'll
be.
have hypotenuse.
But, they'll have his body together.
Wrong.
Miss, the answer says road direct to destination.
Wrong.
Also, well, wrong.
We're all wrong.
Yeah.
Oh, so you just did that.
We did all that for nothing.
Oh, sorry.